The fly. "You're very snug in here," piped old Mr. Woodyfield, and he peered out of the great, green leather armchair by his friend, the boss's desk, as a baby peers out of its pram. His talk was over. It was time for him to be off, but he did not want to go, since he had retired since his stroke. The wife and the girls kept him boxed up in the house every day of the week except Tuesday. On Tuesday, he was dressed and brushed and allowed to cut back to the city for the day, though what he did there the wife and girls couldn't imagine. Made a nuisance of himself to his friends, they supposed. Well, perhaps so. All the same, we cling to our past, to our last pleasures, as the tree clings to its the last leaves. So there sat old Woodyfield, smoking a cigar and staring almost greedily at the boss, who rolled in his office chair, stout, rosy, 5 years older than he, and still going strong, still at the helm. It did one it did one good to see him. Wistfully, admiringly, the old voice added, "It's snug in here, upon my word." "Yes, it's comfortable enough," agreed the boss, and flipped the Financial Times with a paper knife. As a matter of fact, he was proud of his room. He liked to have it admired, especially by old Woodyfield. It gave him a feeling of deep, deep, solid satisfaction to be planted there in the midst of it, in full view of that frail old figure in the muffler. "I've had it done up lately," he explained, as he explained for the past how many weeks, new carpet, and he pointed to the bright red carpet with the pattern of large white rings, the the furniture, and he nodded towards the massive bookcase and the table with legs like twisted trickle. "Electric heating," he waved almost exultantly towards the five transparent, pearly sausages glowing up softly in the titled copper pan. But he did not draw old Woodyfield's attention to the paragraph over the table of a grave-looking boy in uniform standing in one of those spectral photographers park with photographers' storm clouds behind him. It was not new. It was not new. It had been there for over 6 years. "There was something I wanted to tell you," said old Woodyfield, and his eyes grew dim, remembering. "Now, what was it? I had it in my mind when I started out this morning. His hand began to tremble, and patches the red showed above his beard. "Poor old chap, he's on his last pins," thought thought the boss and feeling kindly, he winked at the old man and said jokingly, "I'll tell you what, I've got a little draught of something here that'll do you good before you go out into the cold again. It's beautiful stuff. It wouldn't hurt a child." He took a key of his watch chain, unlocked a, a cupboard below his desk, and drew forth a dark, squat bottle. "That's the medicine," he said, "and the man from whom I got it told me on the street cutie it came from the cellars at Windsor's Castle." Old Woodfield's mouth fell open at the sight. He couldn't have looked more surprised if the boss had produced a rabbit. "It's whiskey, ain't it?" he piped feebly. The boss turned the bottle and lovingly showed him the label. Whiskey it was. Do you know? Do you know? Said he, peering up the boss wonderingly. They won't let me touch it at home. And he looked as though he was going to cry. Ah, there was we know a bit more than the ladies, cried the boss, swooping across to the tumblers and stood on the table with a water bottle and pouring a generous finger into each other. Drink it down, it'll do you good. And put an and don't put any water with it. It's sacrilege to tamper with stuff like it's sacrilege to tamper with stuff like this. Ah, he tossed off his, pulled out his handkerchief, hastily, hastily wiped his mustaches, and and cooked an eye at Woodyfield and was rolling in his chops. The old man swallowed, was silent a moment, and then said faintly, "It's nutty," but it warmed him. It kept into his chill old brain. He remembered. That was it, he said, heaving himself out of his car. I thought you'd like to know the girls were in Belgium last week having a look at poor Reggie's grave, and they happened to come across your boys. They're quiet near each other, it seems. Old Woodyfield seemed Old Woodyfield po- paused, but the boss made no reply. Only a quiver in his eyelids showed that he heard. The girls were delighted with the way the place is kept, piped old voice. Beautifully looked after couldn't be better if they were at home. You've not been across, have you? No, no, no. For various reasons, the boss had not been across. There's miles of it, covered old Woodyfield, and it's all neat as garden flow, flowers going all the graves, nice broad paths. It was plain from his voice how much he liked a nice broad path. The boss came again. Then the old man brightened wonderfully. Do you know what the hotel made the girls pay for a pot of jam? He piped. 10 francs, robbery, I call it. It was a little pot, so Gertrude says, no bigger than a half-crown, and she hadn't taken more than spoonfully when they charged her 10 francs. Gertrude Gertrude brought the pot away with her to teach him a lesson. Quite right too. It's trading on our feelings. They think because we're over there having a look around, we're ready to pay anything. That's it. And he turned towards the door. Quite right, cried the boss. Though what though what was quite right, he hadn't the last idea. He came around by his desk, followed the shuffling footsteps to the door, and saw the old fellow out. Woodyfield was gone. For For a long moment the boss stayed, staring at nothing while the gray-haired office messenger watched him, dodging in and out of his cubbyhole like a dog that expects to be taken for a run. Then, I'll see nobody for half an hour, Macy, said the boss. Understand? Nobody at all. Very good, sir. The door shut. The firm, heavy step recrossed the bright carpet, and fat body plumped down in the spring chair, and leaning forward, the boss covered his face with his hands. He intended, he had arranged to weep. It had been a terrible shock to him when old Woodyfield sprang the, that remark upon him about the boys' graves. It was exactly as though the earth had opened, and he had seen the boy lying there with Woodyfield's girls staring down at him. For it, for it was strange, although over 6 years he passed away, the boss never thought of the boy except as lying unchanged, unblemished in his uniform, asleep forever. "My son," groaned the boss, but no tears came yet. In the past, in the first months and even years for the boy's death, he had only to say those words to be overcome by such grief that nothing short of a violent fit of weeping could relieve him. Time, he had declared then, he had told everybody, could make no difference. Other men perhaps might recover, might live their loss down, but not he. He was it possible? Was it possible? His boy was an only son. Ever since his birth, the son had worked at building up this business for him. It had no other meaning if it was not for the boy. Life itself had come to have no other meaning. How on earth could he have slaved, denied himself, kept going all those years without the promise for the promise forever before him of the boys stepping into his shoes and carrying on where he felt off? And that promise had been so near being fulfilled. The boy had the boy had been in the office learning the ropes for a year before the war. Every morning they had started off together. They had come back by the same train, and what congratulations he had received as the boy's father. No wonder he had taken to it marvelous. As to his popularity with the staff, every man jack of them down, the old Macy couldn't make enough of the boy. He and he wasn't in the least spoiled. No, he was just his bright, natural self, with the right word for everybody, with a boyish look and his habit of saying, "Simply splendid." But all that was over and done with as though it never had been. The day had come. The day had come over Macy when the day had come when Macy had handed him the telegram and brought the whole place crashing about his head. "Deeply regret to inform you," and he had left the office of a broken man with his life in ruins. 6 years ago, 6 years. How quickly time passed. It might have happened yesterday. The boss took his hands from his face. He was puzzled. Something seemed to be wrong with him. He wasn't feeling as he wanted to feel. He decided to get up and have a look at the boy's photograph. But it wasn't a favorite photograph of his. The expression was unnatural, it was cold, even stern looking. The boy had never looked like that. In that moment, the boss noticed that a fly had fallen into his broad ink pot and was trying feebly but desperately to clamber up again, clamber out again. "Help, help," said those struggling legs. But the sides of the ink pot were wet and slippery. It fell back, it fell back again and began to swim. The boss took up a pen, picked picked the fly out of the ink, and shook it into a piece of blotting paper. For a fraction of second, it lay still on the dark patch that oozed round it. Then the front legs waved, took hold, and pulling its sudden body, it began the immense task of cleaning the ink from its wings. Over and under went a leg along a wing. As the stone goes over and under the sight, then there was then there was a pause. Then there was a pause while the fly, seeming to stand on the tips of its toes, tried to expand the wing tried to expand first one wing and then the other. It succeeded and last, and sitting down, it began like a minute cat to clean its face, and now to clean its face. No one could imagine that the little front legs rubbed against each other lightly, joyfully. The horrible danger was over. It had escaped. It was ready for life again. But just then, the boss had an idea. He plunged his pen back into the ink. He leaned to his thick wrist on the blotting paper, and as the fly tried its wings down to come a great heavy blot. What would it make of that? What indeed? What indeed? The little beggar seemed absolutely cowed and stunned and afraid to move because of what would happen next. But then, as if painfully, he dragged itself down. The front legs waved, caught hold, and more slowly this time. The task began from the beginning. He's a pluck, he's a plucky little devil. The the thought the boss he's a plucky little devil, thought the boss, and he felt a real admiration for the fly's courage. That was the way that was the way to tackle things. That was the right spirit. Never say die. It was only a question of. But the fly had again finished its laborious task, and the boss had just time to refill his pen, to shake fair and square on the new cleaned body, yet other dark drop. What about this time? A painful moment of suspense followed. But behold, the front legs were again waving. The boss felt a rush of relief. He leaned over the fly and said to it tenderly, "You artful little," and he actually had a brilliant notion of breathing on it to help the drying process. All the same, all the same, there was something timid and weak weak about its efforts now, and the boss decided that this time should be the last and should be the last as he dipped and the pen deep into the ink pot. It was. The last blot fell on the soaked blotting paper, and he juggled fly lay in it and did not stir. The back legs were stuck on the body, the front legs were not to be seen. Come on, said the boss. Look sharp. And he stirred it with his pen in vain. Nothing happened or was likely to happen. The fly was dead. The boss lifted the corpse on the on the end of the paper knife and flung it into the waste paper basket, such as a grinding feeling or wretch, wretch, wretchedness seized him that he felt positively frightened. He started forward and pressed the bell for Macy. Bring me some fresh blotting paper, he said sternly, and look sharp about it. And while the old dog padded away, he fell to wonder what it was he had been thinking about before. What was it? It was. He took out his handkerchief and passed it inside his collar. For the life of him, he could not remember.